Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the iPhone 14 and compare it against the iPhone 14 Pro and see how both these phones hold up in 2023 now that there's been a few different changes between them. Now, if you want to pick up either one of these phones, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now, starting off with the outside of both of them, I'm sure most of you probably already know what the type of way these phones kind of perform and have been holding up for the last couple of months. The iPhone 14 on the front has that 6.1-inch Super Retina XDR OLED display, and it's a pretty good looking panel. I've definitely used the iPhone 14 more than I've used the 14 Pro, which is kind of funny. On this phone, it still looks good, 60 Hz panel. There's not anything super crazy going on with this phone that I would recommend buying over the 14 Pro, but it is a cheaper version of the 14 Pro. Actually, it's probably even a cheaper version of the 13 Pro, to be honest. Now that I think about it, it's probably a better way to think about it. But it looks pretty nice. Overall, it's been holding up fairly well. The 14 Pro, on the other hand, has, first of all, it's much heavier, so it is substantially heavier in my opinion, but you're also getting that same size 6.1-inch Super Retina XDR OLED display, but you are also getting that same size 6.1-inch Super Retina XDR OLED display. But the thing to keep in mind with the iPhone 14 Pro is that this one is a 120 Hz panel. So it is substantially smoother, so when you're scrolling through and you're opening up applications, things perform much better and they feel much better in the hand, which is awesome. The other thing is that you are getting that dynamic island. Personally, for me, it's not really been that big of a deal. I haven't used this phone as my personal device, but I've used this phone a lot as my secondary device. And, it's good, but I don't know. I'm waiting for them to remove it, and I think that would be a bigger deal. But beyond that, it looks pretty good. The sides of both these phones, you can tell also they are a little different. You are getting that reflective material on the iPhone 14 Pro, which makes the phone not feel that much more expensive. But they're kind of the same type of realm when it comes down to like the build quality and everything. But the iPhone 14 Pro is substantially better in terms of the build quality. Lightning ports at the bottom. And on the back, we are getting a little bit of a different styling on both these as well. The iPhone 13 Pro, the iPhone 14 Pro has that triple camera setup with that LiDAR sensor, where the iPhone 14 has that dual camera setup. So it's pretty cool between both. You have an amazing build quality, I would say, between both of them. You're still maintaining, frosted glass back on the iPhone 14 Pro, which feels very premium. The iPhone 14, on the other hand, has that standard, glass back. MagSafe capability behind both of them. You're getting wireless charging on both, IP certification, and some really good build quality between both of them. But clearly for me, I would say the winner is the 14 Pro. It is a substantially better feeling phone in almost every single area. But I will say the 14 still holds up decently well for the most part. Now, another thing to keep in mind between both is with software updates. I genuinely don't know where these two phones are going to lie. Mostly, people would look at both these devices and be like, oh, the 14 and 14 Pro are going to last the same amount of time. I don't know if that's the case anymore. Because the iPhone 14 has the same chipset as the iPhone 13, I don't know if this one's going to last the same amount of time as the iPhone 14 Pro, because the 14 Pro theoretically could last as long as the iPhone 16. Once that one gets the Apple A17 or Bionic, or if the iPhone 16 gets the A16 Bionic chip, I'm going to be very curious to see what ends up happening in the future. Or if the iPhone 15 ends up getting the A16, whatever the way it is, the iPhone 14 Pro is probably going to have the same chipset as the iPhone 15. So I don't know how long this phone's going to last, and I don't really know how long that phone's going to last. But I think these two phones are going to last separately. They're not going to last the same amount of time. So I've been wrong a lot before, so I could totally be wrong again, but I guess we'll see what happens. Now let's go into a speed comparison between both these devices. The iPhone 14 has that Apple A15 Bionic chip inside of it with 6 gigabytes of RAM, where the iPhone 14 Pro has that Apple A16 Bionic chip inside of it with 6 gigs of RAM as well. So let's go and see which one's the faster phone between both. Okay, there we go. All the apps are not cleared out in the background. Okay, now they are. Let's get into it. 14 Pro's here, 14 is here. Phone calls 3, 2, 1. Okay, about the same thing. Music 3, 2, 1. Okay, I don't really even know what's going on here. Let's go and do settings 3, 2, 1. I don't know why the iPhone 14 didn't open that one up. App Store 3, 2, 1. Two different panels between both. We'll just load into this one. I still think the 14 Pro would have been faster. Let's go and scroll through both of these, see which one is the faster one between them. And the 14 Pro is definitely smoother. The 14 actually kind of got through it faster, which is kind of interesting. Hopping out of there. Clock 3, 2, 1. Okay, about the same thing. Mail 3, 2, 1. About the same thing too. Photos 3, 2, 1. Perfect. Camera 3, 2, 1. Okay, perfect. Hopping out of this one. Let's go and get into news 3, 2, 1. Okay, this one, interestingly enough, came through. Let's go and hop out of here. Let's go and get into some of these third-party applications. We can try something like Temple Run 2, 3, 2, 1. Okay, of course we're getting these pop-ups on the iPhone 14 Pro. One of them has a volume on. I don't really know which one it is, but it's very loud. Nope, it's definitely the 14 Pro. So they both kind of lasted the same amount of time, or they both kind of like got into the game the same time. I don't really think there's been that big of a difference outside of it. Kind of see what's going on here. Pretty much the same thing happening out of here. Let's go and get into something like Facebook. Let's go skip that. Stock 3, 2, 1. Stack, not stock. Okay, 14 Pro is faster. Genshin Impact 3, 2, 1. This is a very large game, so we're just waiting until it gets into the main loading panel. And I don't really know which one again is going to be the faster one here, but I guess we shall see. I'm pretty sure the iPhone 14 Pro is faster. The iPhone 14, a little tiny bit behind. Again, not a big deal, but just one of those things to keep in the back of your head. Snake first block, 3, 2, 1. Okay, perfect. Hopping out of here. Let's go and get into Thank You, 3, 2, 1. Okay, hopping out of here. Let's go and try Netflix, 3, 2, 1. And pretty much the same thing. So I don't really think there's a big, massive difference between the phones, like in terms of speed. I think they're relatively around the same. I think the 14 Pro might be the faster one more times than not, but I still think the iPhone 14 did a really good job today too for the most part. So that pretty much covers it up here. Now in terms of the cameras on the back, they are two different stylings of cameras that I mentioned before. So the iPhone 14 Pro triple camera setup LiDAR sensor, iPhone 14 dual camera setup, both can do 4K at 60 on the back, which is awesome. Again, having that type of 4K at 60 is really cool, and I like having that type of capability for sure. And I will say from my experience, I don't really think there's been like a massive thing where I like look at both these phones and I'm like, oh, like this is such a better camera, or this is a worse camera. They're kind of the same thing as far as I can tell. Like the iPhone 14 Pro camera is better, but I still think the 14's camera is still very good. You have things like time-lapse, cinematic mode, video mode, photo mode, portrait mode, the standard modes that you would have on really any other camera out there nowadays. So it's still good that we have this type of capability. You're getting 5x zoom and 0.5x zoom. It's not as much as some other cameras out there, but it is just one of those things that I've seen. With the iPhone 14 Pro, I feel like this camera is very, very good. It is better than the iPhone 14, and it should be because you're spending way more money on it. So with this one, you're getting 15x zoom, which is really good. Kind of the same thing as the 13 Pro, but it's still a very good camera. Zooming out, you have 0.5x zoom. So that is another cool thing that we have here, having that ability of still having 0.5x zoom, basically the same thing as the iPhone 14. You're still maintaining a lot of different capability here, video mode, cinematic mode, you're getting portrait mode, panorama mode. There's a lot of good stuff going on with this phone still, even though it's, it's a good upgrade coming from the 13 Pro, but I still feel like from the 13 Pro to the 14 Pro, it really wasn't that big of a change. But between the 14 and the 14 Pro, I definitely do think the 14 Pro is by far the better phone here. It is a better phone in pretty much every single area. Maybe not battery life, but beyond that, every single area of this phone is better. But it should be because you are spending more money. You're spending maybe like an extra $200 or something on this phone over the iPhone 14. And it definitely feels like you're getting a better phone. You're getting a faster chipset, newer design with the dynamic island. You're getting 120 Hz display and an amazing build quality that feels out of this world. This is definitely one of my most favorite phones. With iPhone 14, I think this is a good phone. It's definitely not the first one I'd recommend buying. But I don't think the 14 Pro would be the first one I recommend buying either. I think the iPhone 13 Pro would probably be the one I would feel the most comfortable recommending to people, or any of the iPhone 13 series. If you have all the money, then go for one of these. But I think that's kind of how I see all these devices basically right now. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.